Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Fish Lee, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home.
What is up, everybody? I am Mr. Fish from Mr. Fish Comics. I am the fastest pen in indie comics. I didn't give myself that name, but I sure did run with it. I have worked on, I think I just finished my 98th book I've worked on in the last 5 years. I got to do a recount because the numbers are getting big. I put out a lot of books. Yeah, I've put out 14 of my own over the last 2 years. And I'm shifting more and more from doing client work over to doing more and more of my own stuff. And I made 7 months last year on just doing my own books, which was freaking awesome. Like, I'm already living my childhood dream of drawing comics for a living. But then to get to do my own stuff, that's like winning the lottery on top of that. And I love it.
All right. The next part of the introduction, dear listener, dear viewers at home, is how we first found them. So actually what you don't know is during one of his mini Border Patrol sting operations, Nick actually rescued Mr. Fish from a indie comic sweatshop where they had him chained to the desk. They would throw food at him occasionally. And they had his hands. It was all pearl wrinkled and gnarled from all the overwork. But Nick saved him, gave him a cheeseburger, and all was right with the world. So I do have to ask, Mr. Fish, what was on that cheeseburger?
Oh man, everything. I mean everything. I'm a big fan of all of the veggies, all of the dressings, man. I gotta have it piled down. And he did me right. Yeah, I'd wasted away nothing but fat and bone. He's lucky he got there when he did.
So Nick, how do you take your burgers? This is an important question. I don't think we've asked each other this.
Oh, okay. So I was just out in Florida, which the Joyous Burger, which is known as Whataburger, has made its way that far east. So I was missing some Texas delicacy real bad. So I went over to Whataburger, and my favorite burger there is the patty melt. So you get the patty melt, got to add bacon, got to add the grilled jalapeno on it. The gravy for the chicken tenders, you get a side of that for your fries. Oh, it's awesome. So it's a patty melt with peppercorn sauce and I want to say it's like pepper jack cheese that they put on there. It's really good.
I don't think they've made it up to Virginia where I'm at. Although I have seen a fight in one of the groups we're in, and they had a guy standing in fatigues outside of a Whataburger, and it said, MREs taste better than Whataburger, changed my mind. And he was clearly trolling, trying to start a fight. Dogging that fight because I've never eaten there.
Oh. But, I constantly pulled into the In-N-Out versus Whataburger, and I'm like, it depends what I'm in the mood for. If I want unchecked diarrhea, I'll get Whataburger. If I want a delicious burger that tastes fresh, I'll go to In-N-Out. But they both serve their purpose.
So instead of answering what brand, because we don't really have anything I get that picky about, for me it's either the mushroom and Swiss burger. There's just something about that combination, especially if they caramelize the onions. With the mushrooms. And then my other one when I don't feel for that is definitely sharp cheddar and bacon on the burger. And you got to get the burger with just enough pink that, you're not quite sure. Is it blood or is it, something else? Ketchup, maybe. I don't know.
It's got to be blood. That's.
I'm not quite like eating it raw, like Nick tells me I should, but I do want some pink in there.
Man, you give me a knife, fork, and a cow, and I'm good to go. I just recently had the best burger. We just went to a con in Maryland, and the con was a bust for everything else. And they had this real expensive restaurant, and I wasn't going to eat there because the burger was $20. And we got vouchers because they had to move our room. And so we decided, okay, what the heck, we'll get dinner down there. I thought the $20 burger was ridiculous. It's legit the best burger I've ever had. I mean, it was nice and medium rare. The bacon was delicious. There wasn't even any mayo or ketchup or anything. It was dry, and it was the most delicious burger I've ever had in my life. It was good.
There's a few of those places out there that it's like you don't need even to put anything on there. It's a symphony in its own.
It was
so delicious.
when I was in high school, we did the JROTC thing, and we went to Texas for like the national competition. And on the way there, I was like 3 days from Virginia to Texas on a bus with a bunch of teenage boys. It was a horrific smell, I imagine, looking back. But we stopped at this little like hole in the wall, the burger joint. It looked like it was a shack on the side of the road that was about to fall over. But we went inside and it was like
Best
nice
places.
and decorated. And they didn't have plates. They had like metal sheets of metal that were just rounded enough so you didn't cut yourself and sue. And you would think like this infrastructure, like I'm getting salmonella or something, but it was the best burger I've ever had. I still sleep and dream about that burger sometimes. And I know it was in Texas on the way to College Station, but I don't remember anything other than the burger was the best thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah, there was this little hole-in-the-wall restaurant when I lived in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Just like this mom and her 2 sons. I swear it was like a gang front or something, but it had the best freaking food. And every time I go in there, they give you the menu, and it's like, all right, I want this. We don't have that. I want this. We don't have that. I want this. Everything on the menu's gone except for the one thing that she made today for lunch. But it was always freaking delicious. Tastes like my grandma's cooking. It was the best.
Those little hole in the wall small country restaurants are sometimes some of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got one like that here. It doesn't do like they mostly sell desserts and stuff and pastries, but it's a Mennonite restaurant. And I don't know, maybe they're like doing voodoo over it or something, but it's some of the best cheesecake I've ever had. So I get it. Why do we always become the food channel, Nick? This is all your fault.
Because we enjoy food, man. We really do. And one of my favorite sayings for good food is, I don't know what they seasoned it with, but it must be with the souls of children from Darfur, which is kind of off-colored and offensive, and that's why I think it's funny. But yeah, we enjoy food and coffee. So we could totally do a coffee and food podcast if we wanted to, but I like speculative fiction better.
We also do whenever we talk to Ian Malcolm, it always becomes the How Do You Grow Your Stuffs podcast. And we've always joked we're going to do one of those where we just sit around and like figure out a way to make grilling things in brisket somehow relate to sci-fi. Just so we can justify it. Like, well, maybe they would do this on Mars, and then we'll go. And then it'll literally just be the food podcast.
The Ewoks were getting ready to do some spit roasting humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people
that.
like to gloss over that. Those some little cannibal bears. Like
they just had a dress
for no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
And a dress that fit Leia. That
Someone was wearing
that they probably ate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I don't know if it makes it worse that they look cute and cuddly as they eat your face or not. At the time, I was like a kid, you don't really think about it. But now as an adult, I'm like, I'd almost want them, if they're going to eat my face, to look like something that says, hey, we're about to eat your face. The fact that teddy bears
I want
makes
you to look like a predator, not a big googly-eyed teddy bear. Like, I want you to look a little scary if you're going to. At least then I know you got it. You won this fight. But to lose to an Ewok would be embarrassing.
I was on a long plane ride coming back from R&R when I was overseas, and we sat next to this guy who was a biologist, and he actually was explaining to me, because we got in this long discussion about the Ewoks, but from a biological standpoint, it makes sense because the ones that they will disarm their prey by looking attractive. That's why some of the poisonous stuff has all the bright colors, because they want you to look at it. They want to get under the.
It's like, oh, you're pretty.
Right. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense, although that's probably accidental and incidental to whatever they were really trying to do when they made that show. But anyway, all right. So we came here to talk about comics, but before we do that, we do have to ask you the religion question. Are you ready for this?
Yes, I am prepared.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Yes, absolutely.
All of the above, huh?
I am probably one of those few that like is a firm lover of all three of those for all of the different reasons. You know, I like Star Trek for its hope. I like it for the fact that it shows, like, you know, you could have the military working effectively and everything going great and not, you know, doing stupid stuff, you know, like I'm listening to my son complain all the time about all the hierarchy nonsense that he's having to deal with, and, you know, just nonsense that gets piled onto the fact that it could be so effective and it could work so well and everybody could be so happy. And I love that. I love that humanity could be happy. I love the fantasy and adventure of Star Wars. I love the the right mix of sci-fi and wizardry. It's so much fun. And then freaking Firefly, man, dude, Firefly is just dope, man. Firefly is where I would be living if I was out in space. I wouldn't make it anywhere else, but I would make it there.
I like any
space redneck.
Yeah, I like any series that understands that the some of the creative and most dangerous things that ever be invented are a bunch of testosterone-filled 18-year-old men who's got lacking supervision in a moment. Because that's what the officers are there to keep us enlisted grunts from going full, Lord of the Flies. Because absent supervision, I mean, you know what they say, it's not a war crime the first time.
Oh man, the stuff my son has pulled, and I'm like, I can't believe you're still in there. I can't believe they haven't kicked you out yet.
Yeah, his son is in the Army, by the way. We talked about that pre-show. He hasn't told you. What's your son doing in the Army?
Whatever they tell him to. Last we talked about it, he was training other officers in his position, but every time he tells me his position, it's riding on a Humvee. So I don't know if he just doesn't want to bore me with too many details, but and then he's done some stuff that I can't talk about. So
it's fair. We don't acknowledge the mass murder that happens in our DFACs, so I understand. We won't go there. Nick, remember we signed those NDAs. We can't talk about it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. All right. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
I would have to say Chronicles of Narnia because that's the one I'm more familiar with. I didn't watch Game of Thrones when it came out, and so that's the one I know.
Okay. Did you enjoy? I think they made some of those into TV shows. Did you watch the shows too, or just read the books?
The books, like Chronicles of Narnia. We read the books. We watched the movies and stuff. Like, I've enjoyed that series.
Yeah, I read it as a kid and then read it to the kids when they were younger. So yeah,
I did the same thing. Like my dad read it to me growing up, and then getting to read it to my kids growing up was awesome. And and then getting to watch the movies and stuff it was cool.
And then of course every dad has the rite of passage when you read those stories, and they want you to do the voices, and you're expected to just keep the voices straight. So sometimes Bob sounds like Bob instead of James, like you did the last night. I would always mix the voices. I don't know how voice actors do it. Like, hats off to them. But I was mixing accents up half the time. They sounded quasi-Scottish with German guttural sound. I don't know why, but I just tried to do accents. It came out badly.
Oh, my bad guys always come out sounding Russian. I guess it came from growing up in the 80s. But every time I try and do a villain, and I'll try and come up with a new voice, it always ends up sliding into my bad Russian accent every time.
Yeah, and I growing up a military brat during the Cold War, I get it, because my parents were less worried about 4-letter words and more worried about the 7-letter word, otherwise known as commie, because that was the greatest insult you could give a man back then.
Oh yeah.
You drop a few vulgar words, they might let it go, but you call someone a commie, my dad's like, now see here, we don't use those kind of words without cause. I imagine it was the same for you, Nick.
I'm sorry?
I said, I imagine it was the same for you because your dad was Navy when you were growing up, right? He was with the SEAL teams?
He got out before I was, well, I'm pretty sure the reason why he got out was me, because I was being born and my mom kind of forced him out. But yeah, he was with teams. My grandfather, he was a Navy man as well. So they both were always training to fight the Ruskies, the threat, the Red Scare and all that. So, and when I joined the Army, that was still a threat, in 96. I mean, it was kind of like going from like, we're worried about communism to like Islamic Jihad stuff, so it like, but growing up, it was all Russian.
Yeah, in that era, you were worried about all the stuff that got lost when the USSR fell. All the serious bad stuff, like the missiles and the nuclear unaccounted for. So I feel
sarin gas.
Because, we don't care about that. That's not important.
No.
And when I went through basic in 98, it was still, all of the pop-up targets were painted like Ivan. And it was, with the little commie star on the helmet.
That's what they were called. They were called Crazy Ivans.
Except for Freddy on the right. Fast Freddy on the right was always just Freddy.
Oh, at the 50 meter, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't stand it.
He was a jerk. He never went down even when you shot him. I don't care what they say that we missed. No, you shot him, he just didn't go down. The drugs, man. It was the drugs they had him on. But anyway, all right. One of the crying shames of adulthood is we stop asking the important questions. So we're bringing that back. Are you ready for the most important question of your life, sir?
I have been waiting for this one for a long time.
All right. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Triceratops, hands down.
Excellent choice. It's one of my favorites too. You passed the test, sir. We can continue.
Good.
Is it the look that you like?
I love the look of it. I love the look. I love the size. I love the build. I love drawing them anthropomorphized into, monsters. When the Ninja Turtles hit the Triceratons in the comics, I was done. I was a lifelong fan of Ninja Turtles after that. That was all I needed, man. I was hooked.
That was one of my favorite figures
Mm-hmm.
from the Ninja Turtles.
Did you have a favorite Ninja Turtle?
I liked them all. I mean, and I keep going back and forth, and where I am at my life also depends on which one I like more. Like, when I was a teenager and I was full of anger and testosterone and Tourette's fueled rage, I was, a true, Raphael enthusiast, but also, I'm creative and an intellectual and stuff. So I like Donnie and, all this stuff. Growing up and being a dad, I see more of being a leader with, Leonardo and Splinter, and, it just keeps changing over time.
I always liked Donatello just because he always liked the gadgets and the stick that he could beat people with, the staff. I mean, because you could just find one of those anywhere. Yeah, the bow staff just seemed practical. But maybe because I grew up on the anthropomorphic version of the guy that steals from stuff, Robin Hood, with the animals and the foxes and stuff, and the guy on with the staff. Yeah, I just always go back for me. But yeah, for me it was Donatello just because the gadgets are cool. Plus, I like the idea of the practical weapon. Did you have a favorite one, Nick?
I have to side with Fish here. It depends on what phase of my life. I mean, I always liked Mike. I always liked Mikey. I thought he was fun. Growing up as a kid in Southern California, you're in that whole surfer type, environment and skate. So Mike was a big influence on me. And then as I got older, Donnie was kind of cool too because of all the tech stuff, and he was kind of a genius. And I dug that. But I would say the longest phase of my life is I'm still in my Raphael phase. So I'm kind of an a-hole. Everything kind of bugs me because people just won't use common sense or they won't get out of my way in the grocery store. So,
yeah, the older I get, the more Red Foreman makes sense to me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. 1,000 ways to put my foot in your ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one was, son, fat, dumb, and stupid's no way to go through life.
So it's something I tell the boy all the time. I'm like, listen, you didn't get my the Danny Tanner version of me. That was when I was younger. You got the Red Foreman dad. So pull your head out of your ass.
Oh, yeah. I love the tech aspect with Donnie too. Like, actually, the whole reason that I draw comics now for a living is because I wanted to be an inventor as a kid. And my mom smartly would not take me to the junkyard to buy gear for my inventions because she knew I would just drag home every cool thing I saw, like drag home fenders and radiators and stuff. I swear I'm going to use it. So she wanted me to make detailed plans before I would bring anything home. And that led to me drawing thousands and thousands of plans, and they kept evolving. And, next thing you know, it was just easier to draw superhero suits than to actually try and build an Iron Man suit or something and get it to work.
I think that comes from being a child product of the 80s because of the movies. Mm-hmm. Like we had E.T., where
oh man, I wanted to be Data from the Goonies so bad.
You had Goonies never died. And then you had the Explorers. They took an old carnival cart and turned it into a freaking spaceship.
I could do it. I could do it if I just had that computer key that lets you build the little bubble around it. I'd be set. I could do it.
Oh yeah. that got me really into like getting into computers and the things that you could do with it as a young age. But like I was so young that it just my brain hadn't developed to the point where that I would understand that crap.
Yeah.
So like I think it's just being a product of the 80s and the stuff that we watched for entertainment that gave us those aspirations and
Oh man, MacGyver and
those
everything
ideas.
just taught us that you can make whatever you need to make out of whatever you got on hand, and had me breaking open every walkie-talkie or anything that I got to try and figure out how it
Oh yeah,
works, and then
figure out how it
building
works.
new stuff
Yeah.
out of it. And yeah,
I probably should have put this on air, but MacGyver's the reason I had a mullet in high school. I mean, in middle school, because it
Oh,
was
man,
the
I
time.
think it's just because mullets were the thing back then.
Yeah, but it was because
It's
MacGyver
brown
made it cool.
in the back. Yeah,
Oh,
and
man.
Rambo.
Yeah. Rambo's a
Everybody
story of
cool
a
had a
man that
mullet
just wanted to be left alone.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, right. All right. So because we talked about
Sit on my
teenage, go ahead.
So I just want to sit up on my mountain and draw comic books. That's all I want to do.
Yeah. So one of the things that we haven't ever asked before, but since we're talking about it, why not? Do you have a favorite pizza? Since we talked Ninja Turtles, it'd be inappropriate not to mention pizza with them in the discussion.
Oh, Supreme, hands down.
Nick?
Depends on where I go. I'm a traditionalist. I do love pepperoni. I actually got a really good slice in Florida last week, and it was like big pepperonis. Big pepperonis, and they were just crisp, almost like bacon-esque, and the cheese was delightful, and like you could fold it. Oh, it was just. I had to save 2 slices, and before I flew out yesterday, I had those in my fridge at the hotel, and that was the first thing I microwaved in the morning. I woke up, I was like, all right, coffee goes with this, but it's happening. So good luck, everybody on the plane.
Yeah, for me, it's always the 3 or 5 meat pizza, depending on where we're going. A little bit of sausage, pepperoni, ham, maybe some bacon. It's always good.
Like a meat lovers.
Yeah, the meat lovers. It's depending on where you go is how they're going to call it. And I don't like the thin crust. I prefer the bready crust.
I like stuffed crust.
I love a good thin crust, like a really good thin crust. I love it. I love the thick, yeasty, bready crust. I mean, I can find a good pizza anywhere, if they do it right. I'm a fan. And I love everything from cheese to pepperoni to whatever, but I've always got a sweet spot in my heart for that thick crust Supreme and the real buttery, thick crust.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How do you feel about the cheese stuffed crusts?
Oh, it's good.
Big fan.
It's good.
Big
But
fan.
I like that yeasty dough crust better.
Okay. It's a purist. You want the crust, you can also dip in the marinara sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Here we call it the pizza bones, pizza skeleton. So when you got the crust left, that we'll come up with dipping sauces for it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got your pizza crust, you got your pizza bones. Yeah.
And if it's a good, like, kind of hand tossed, slightly bitter crust, that pizza crust is really good with honey. We went to one pizza place when I was a kid that had honey on the table, and my stepmom could not figure out what it was there for, and finally asked him, like, "Oh, it's for the bones." And ever since, like, those bones, if it's really good, like, like I said, slightly bitter crust, I will save those specifically for dessert and then eat them afterwards.
Nice. See, we have our priorities straight here at the Blast Podcast. Yeah. And now you know why Nick and I struggle to fit in extra workouts, because we like the foods. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, sometimes the argument is right. You can't outrun it.
You don't get this fat without, like, putting a lot of effort and training into this, man. You gotta enjoy your food. You don't just get this fat drinking sodas, man. You got to put hard work into this.
That's right. It's an investment.
You hear about these physically fit dudes dying all the time at young ages.
Oh, yeah.
Over here, like, not just eating salads and bullshit, instead of good stuff like pizza.
I'm not missing steaks and good burgers and stuff. No,
they probably died from sadness because they weren't eating good food.
Yeah, died from sadness.
I'm getting like Waterboy vibes. What Mama said. That's an underrated movie. That's right. It's an underrated movie. All right, so this is the part where we normally insert a commercial, but since Mr. Fish was brave enough and bold enough to sponsor this episode, instead we are just going to move on and ask the most important question we have asked in all of our religion questions. So we here at the Blasters and Blades, we are civilized now. We are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. So coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Again, that would be a yes. I'm a Southern man, so tea is like runs through my veins. I've been a sweet tea man my entire life. I've had to transition my diabetic behind over to unsweet tea, which I feel like has put my Southern integrity in jeopardy. I feel like somebody's going to come pull my card, but it's okay. But I'm definitely a coffee every morning, man. And I'm an iced coffee guy now because, as we said before, I'm very well insulated. So, like, drinking hot coffee gets my whole body temperature up for the whole rest of the day, and I'll be sweating. But a nice iced coffee, it keeps this mountain of a man cooled down, and I like that. I like my hot coffee when it gets really really cold out. But I just made a new pot of iced coffee, so I'm good to go in the morning.
That sounds like an actual commercial. Keeps this mountain of a man cold all day long. Yeah, I used to not like iced coffee, and then I happened to be the lady that was cutting my kid's hair, because with my youngest being special needs, she was really good at it. So I would pick her up Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee while I was on the way, sort of as a tip, just because she was doing it out of her home to when he was younger, dealing with his sensory issues. And I was going through, and I found her order written down because she's since moved to Georgia. I'm like, I wonder what this tastes like. So like 10 years after I had made this order for her, because I'm cleaning out my junk drawer, right? We've all got that one drawer you just shove everything in, and periodically you have to kind of prune it, and I was pruning it, and I found this coffee order. And I'm like, this sounds interesting. So I drove to Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm like, hey, boy, do you want a donut? And he's like, sure, we'll go. And I got the coffee, and I'm like, this ain't half bad. And I've been hooked ever since. So I've been playing with ways to make it slightly healthier. But as a son of the South myself, I too love my diabetes in a cup, otherwise known as table wine or sweet tea. It's got to hold the spoon up. It's got to be that thick and that good. It's basically syrup.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Oh, it makes my mouth hurt just thinking about it. But
in all the best ways.
I grew up with that, man. That was it. That's what I mixed my first mixed drinks in as a kid. Like, that's everything was in that sweet tea, man.
Sweet tea and mix. I've never done that. All right, Nick, we're gonna have to come up with some recipes.
Oh dear, I'm on it.
You got your resident mixologist, Miss Stabby Stab. Put her to work. She needs to find some tea recipes for us. We're gonna experiment for science, people. We will damage our livers for you, dear listener, for science.
Yeah. I got a booze run to do tomorrow, a resupply run tomorrow. So
that's almost the South. The joke was hold my beer. Or when I was in the Army, it was always for science because we were always experimenting, and it was always for the greater good, of course. I do remember
it live.
Right, we did that once. Didn't end so well. My doctor called and like, JR, is there anything you want to talk about? I'm like, no, we were just having fun. Don't listen to episode 2, people. We didn't do it again. But so obviously, normally we would air the commercial, but you were gracious enough to sponsor this episode. So can you give us the Reader's Digest version of what Fishtails is?
Fishtails is an anthology series from the universe of Mr. Fish comics. The first issue has lots of different little short stories that I had worked on. Issue 2 has short stories specifically from my other properties. Like, it has a story about the warrior Kess, who is from the Mighty Caw, the Cro-Magnon, and it shows what her life was like growing up, shows how she became a warrior, shows more of the world that the Mighty Caw just crash landed on. The story in the middle there, that's Captain Atomic from the world of Green Zone, where a bunch of mutant cops are trying to earn their citizenship, and by being cops in a world where it's illegal to be born a mutant. If you're successful and you could go on and become a professional superhero like Captain Atomic, you could be on TV, be a big hero, but what happens when he gets called off world? So this story that my son co-wrote and illustrated for this book, which is amazing, it's his first published story, is about the B team that fills in for him when he can't be there. And then the story on the end is Alice Lost in Wonderland, which is a story that I've been working on for 30 years. And this has another installment of that story that started in the first issue of Fish Tales and is now the whole first issue of Alice compiled. Just went out on backer kit recently and is going to be getting shipped out soon.
So what was that like working with your son?
It's been really interesting, especially like on the Captain Atomic story was really neat because like we worked out in a conversation like what the main points were, and I gave him like an outline. He did everything else and just sent me in penciled pages and inks and stuff. And it was really awesome to be on like the writer side of things and be able to see how much he brought to it, how cool he made the pages. Like he definitely has a little bit more of a manga influence than I do, but you know, that's his generation and stuff. And I just loved getting to do that. Getting to work on Alice, like the full issue of Alice that went on a backer kit, he colored half of those pages with me. And like I had already had almost half the book done through the pages of Fish Tales, which has already gone out to my Patreon subscribers. The issue 2 went out a couple months ago to my Patreon subscribers. It's just now going to Kickstarter for the big print run and everything. So on the new pages to fill out the first issue, he colored that with me, and he did such an amazing job. Like you really can't tell where my work ends and his work begins. And that's, he grew up listening to these stories his entire life. Like I've literally been working on this story for 30 years, and he's got to hear how the story evolved. So it was really meaningful for him to get to be a part of that, getting to see it come to fruition and everything. It's epic. If he could get just a little bit faster and you know keep up with his old man, I could keep that boy busy all day, every day. Man, he could quit that day job if he could just get his speed up a little bit.
Is this the son that's in the army or another child?
No, this is his little brother. Yeah, he's just turned 20. He turns 21 this Christmas, actual Christmas Day, and so yeah, he's got his own place, and him and his girlfriend are, you know, making a life for themselves. So he's got a lot of pressure to get out there and get the wheels going and get moving and make money and whatnot.
Okay. So did he have a natural talent drawing growing up, or is that something he just learned? Because I know some people can get the mechanics even if it's not natural to them.
People always look at my artwork and like, oh, you're so naturally talented. I wish I had that special gift. And I'm like, the only gift I had was I was the best artist in kindergarten. And that all that meant was I could draw the best dragster out of a triangle and 2 different sized circles. And then I put some scribbles behind the back one to make smoke. And I put another circle on top for a helmet. And I was a god among men. And I was the best artist in town. Everything since then has been hard work and practice and learning and locking myself away. I tell everybody, you could be as good an artist as me if you just lock yourself in a room for 40 years and do nothing but draw. Like, you know, forget the going out on dates and the dances and the football and all that BS. You know, just draw. You'll be here. It's just practice. My son,
the talent,
he was a good artist. Yeah, he had a little bit of skill in the beginning, but he also hyper focused on it the way I did because we're both neurodivergent, have Tourette's and ADHD and autism and things. So he hyper focused on it the same way I did because it was something that we could enjoy together. And he had the benefit of having a dad that was a professional artist that could give him advice and tips and stuff. And he learned very early on, to his credit, how to take advice and critiques and not be like, oh, Dad said it sucks. Because no, I didn't say it. I said it's awesome. You did a great job, you know. But if you want to get better, then you could do this and this. And he learned to accept that at a very young age, which was a real testament. And he got so much better than me, so much faster at such a young age. It kind of ticks me off just a little bit. But
that is a skill that even adults, well, not that he's not an adult now, but you know, you're talking about him when he was a kid. Like I know a lot of professional authors who have trouble with accepting the criticism. And it's like, no, you're insulting me personally. I'm like, no, we're just talking about the book. Chill.
This is my baby I've worked on for 40 years. How dare you, sir? Like, well,
and I get it, because
it doesn't make sense.
my blog post back in the day when I was more active on my website instead of just trying to get more words. I wrote about my first editing experience, and I called it "Tears of Blood" or how I learned to bend over and take it like a man.
Yeah,
And that can be what it feels like. And I imagine, like, when I write, I use words to try to paint a picture in someone's head. And if they don't see it the way I have, I don't get as offended by fixing it to paint the picture a little better. But when you've literally painted a picture and they don't see what you want them to see, I imagine that hurts a little bit worse.
yeah. I mean, like, especially like when you literally drew something and they can't tell what that is. Like, you think you did a really good job of portraying an emotion, and they're like, "Does she have gas?" And like, like, I thought it was heartbreak. Apparently it looks like indigestion. Like, I mean, or you like one time I had a client ask me, he wanted me to draw this female character and he wanted her to be big and curvy but beautiful. So I drew a big curvy woman, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't want her to be fat and disgusting." And I'm like, "I thought she was pretty, but okay, we need to like hone down on what you want." And and then his answer was like, "Well, just make her prettier." That doesn't tell me anything. Like, I need real specific instructions. And
It's so subjective.
yeah, it's hard. Like, when you think you really nailed something, that's the part that hurts my feelings as an artist the most, is when I'm really proud of myself because I really think I got exactly what you wanted. And then it turns out that wasn't what you wanted at all. I don't care that you give me a revision. If it's not what you want, I want you to tell me. It just it hurts my heart because I was so excited because I thought I nailed it. That's when it bothers me the most. 9 times out of 10, I couldn't care less. Like, "Oh, you want that changed? Okay. Maybe I don't understand why you like this better, but it's not my book. It's your book. I want to make you happy." But when I really think I nailed it and I'm super excited to show it to somebody, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, she's too fat, bro." I'm like, "Oh,
You can
man."
tell they did not grow up with the love guru known as Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I'm saying, dude. Man.
And if you know, you know, but we're not allowed to say the lyrics because I don't want to get sued or get this get this episode copyright struck. But
Not for nothing, but Jonathan Colton is an artist on Spotify. You need to look up his version of "Baby Got Back." It is my favorite song in the world now, and I view my life before that song and after that song. So there you go.
That's high praise. And you
Yeah.
said it's Jonathan
It's
Colton is the guy's name?
Yeah, it's funny and it's beautiful and I love it so much.
I'm writing that down. And we will try
Be sure
to
to take notes at home too, boys and girls.
That's right. We'll link it in the show notes too, because why not? We got to educate the younger generation, right? That's our job as the old guys now.
I'm saying, man, I find something cool and new, I'm going to share it with people.
Exactly.
I'm gonna yell it on the mountain.
That's right. Well, you're already on the mountain, so do we just need to send you a megaphone?
I can just walk out on the porch.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So
I got a pretty good voice. It carries.
We want to show you some of the art that's in this book that you sent us from the samples. So
that's some of my son's work right there. I
that's
absolutely love what he did with it. That's one of the characters on the B team who is alien shapeshifter that got arrested for stealing people's identities. And so now he's on like a work release program for Alpha, which is an international organization that coordinates professional heroes. And so he's on work release from jail to be a part of this team, and he can imitate the look and sound of anybody. He can't really mimic their powers, but he's really great for looking like them in person and pulling off a really good impression. So he jumps the gun and decides to go in first and nearly gets himself electrocuted.
Nice. And I'm just going to kind of show you, dear listeners, some of the work that's in this book. This is Alice, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Alice, and that's the White Rabbit, the character that he's being chased by an army and sees Alice and snags her up to protect her, and he has a sword that lets him cut through reality and time. So he's running through dimension after dimension, timeline after timeline with this army chasing him. By the time he finally gets rid of them, he can't find his way back to where Alice is from to take her back home. So he ends up adopting her and doesn't do the best job as a dad. And she grows up kind of feral in this interdimensional rift known as Wonderland, where all the different public domain worlds that you've heard about are different planets crashing in together. And, all the different characters are aliens and robots and ghosts and stuff. And so he's explaining to her in this little section here that like he snagged her up because she has the same white hair he does, which is what lets them the timeline change around them without changing them. It lets me get around loopholes and stuff in time travel, because they're untethered from time, because there's only one of them in all the multiverse. There are no other versions of Alice. There's just this one. So she was born with this white hair, and the army was after him for his white hair if they caught her. So he took her to save her, and now she's trapped and hasn't been able to find her way home.
That's kind of genius, and I hate you for thinking of it first.
In this, he's talking about how like some of them, because they can see time change around them and stuff like that, sometimes they're heralded as priests in the middle panel there, and then like the homeless guy on the end is considered a crazy person because he's on the street corner screaming like, you had blue hair yesterday, and you didn't, but the timeline changed and you're not a punk rocker anymore, so you don't have blue hair anymore. And he sees all that happen and just seems like a crazy person. And if he had been somewhere else where they thought that was awesome, he would have been a high priest or something. And, the rabbit is a scoundrel and a bounty hunter.
I dig it. So I just took random samplings from what he gave us so you can kind of get an idea. This is more of the White Rabbit. I like these troops, this Judge Dredd look going on at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. They are the soldiers from the Nexus Order, which is this time-worshipping cult. And they want to figure out why these travelers can go through time and not die when they change the timeline. Because they can send their soldiers back and they can change things, but as soon as the timeline rewrites itself, they get destroyed, and then everything goes back to the way it was because of the paradoxes and whatnot. And they want to capture him to figure out why he can survive that so they can make their troops survive it. And so that's why he's on the run from them.
That's genius.
I dig the art too. It's very vibrant and alive, which I really like.
Yeah.
This is more from Alice.
Yeah, that's Cheshire. He's an interdimensional like yokai ghost and troublemaker and whatnot, and sets her on this whole path to find out that the cobbler, who is another character, another public domain story, the cobbler and his elves, I brought in and incorporated onto a character I've already had in my role-playing games for years, who was this interdimensional deal maker. And anytime you go looking, anytime you're anywhere in any one of my role-playing games and you scream loud enough you want to make a deal, some doorway somewhere would open up to this guy's shop. And it could be your closet door. It could be the door to your car. It could be the airlock to the space station. Doesn't matter. It'll turn into the door to his shop. You go inside, you're in his little pocket dimension. And then it's up to him whether or not he wants to let you out. And like, usually they would go in there and gamble for like really extravagant things, and he will bet you for really weird things. And sometimes, like he will gamble with you like, yeah, you can get this amazing weapon that can destroy the world, in exchange for 2 days of your life. And every time I've done that to players, they're like, oh yeah, what do I care if he takes 2 days off the end of my life? But he doesn't take it off the end. He takes it from wherever he wants to. And so it could be at a real pivotal time when you were going to change the path of history, and he just yoinks you out of there. Or it could be when, Nick doesn't show up for the game this week, and so his character gets yoinked out as a really easy plot point to explain why he's not there. And he's been one of my favorite characters to play in the role-playing game. And I love it. And getting to bring him into this was so much fun. So he's this deal maker here that has all these little finger spider elves crawling everywhere that build things for him. And yeah, he's putting a bounty out on the White Rabbit, and Alice has to come intervene.
So where did you get the idea for that concept?
necessity in the game. Like the guys found themselves in a game. I've been running basically the same role playing game for 30 years. And it started out as like a D&D knockoff, but quickly turned into superheroes. But in the D&D knockoff back in the day, they were stuck deep in this dungeon. There was no way out. They were out of weapons and they were out of ammo and stuff, and they were desperate to find some way to make a deal or find a shop. And I got the idea, and a door opens up, and one of my favorite characters of my entire role-playing game life was created just out of sheer necessity and the seat of my pants.
Necessity is the mother of all inventions.
I'm telling you, man.
So, all right. So that's this panel. And then this is just another type of art, although this is the art that's on the Kickstarter, which is obviously you. So who drew you? Did you draw you or did your son draw you?
Oh yeah. I draw me and all the extra stuff for the Kickstarter. And that's Eddie, who is a character from my book Green Zone with the mutant cops. He works, in the equipment depot in the police station and hands out their gear during the day. And I just kind of threw him in there originally as a caveat, little wink and a nod to the creature from the Black Lagoon. When you grow up with a name like Fish, that is your default favorite monster. Like he has to be. I can't be a Frankenstein guy. I got to be a creature of the Black Lagoon guy.
Wait, so that's really your name? Not
yeah, it's short for Fisher, but like
only
cops and stuff call me that when they pull me over. Like nobody that knows me calls me that. So yeah, he was in Green Zone already. And after the first issue of Fish Tales came out, I had a couple of fans hit me up and be like, you really need a narrator like Tales from the Crypt. And then one of them, my buddy J-Man, we were talking about it, and he suggested Eddie from Green Zone. And I just died laughing because he's not the most friendly guy. And just thinking of putting him in these ridiculous situations, having to introduce these stories and stuff, it was so funny to me. I couldn't resist it. And so there's lots of like jokes and stuff playing off of how fast you turn the page and he's getting dizzy and he's going to throw up and whatnot, and cracking jokes back at me and stuff. He's been so much fun sticking the book.
Breaking the third wall. Very Deadpool of you.
Yeah.
No, it's fourth wall, not third wall.
Yeah.
So first we're going to start off with what are your like artistic inspirations when it comes to comics? And then we're going to talk about specifically your Kickstarter and the packages and stuff.
Man, I mean, I really came of age in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s. So, Neil Adams was a big influence on me, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, all those guys. My biggest artistic influence, and I don't draw anything like him, was Mark Texiera. That was really big at Marvel at the time, got really big in the horror resurgence, with Ghost Rider and stuff. He was doing Wolverine for a long time. The way he could make something look so photorealistic and distorted at the same time was amazing to me. And like there were scenes, like flashback scenes of Wolverine in a bar during that Wolverine run that like looked like they were just drawn from life to me. And it just blew my mind. And he so clearly used like a quill pen and a brush and multiple things at the same time, not just a technical pen or whatever, like some of the guys had gone over to. So I really studied his work, but really the fact that he drew so differently than everybody else eventually made me go back from scratch when I realized I was just a really bad Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee knockoff. And I went back from scratch and started drawing from life and figuring out what do I need to do when I only have black lines on white paper to make it look like what I'm looking at. And I came up with a whole new style of drawing, which is actually, I often get it's a lot bigger throwback to the old school guys like Ditko and, Kirby and stuff, because it's simpler and it doesn't have all the cross hatching most people my age throw in everything. and it's more just about line weight and stuff, and keeping it clear. And I came up with a whole new way of drawing, and I like it. And it's fast. It's a whole lot faster than was filling the page full of cross hatching all day long. And I can get like 5 pages done in the time it took me to get one before. So that sped me up a whole lot, which has made me very popular among my clients.
Yeah, I'm guilty of the cross hatching because I grew up in that Jim Lee, Todd
Oh yeah.
McFarlane, Liefeld era, and I like that style of art. So I put that in a lot of things. So it's like, yeah, man, I want to make a Jim Lee style book, and then it's
Oh,
just
I love it, man. I studied cross hatching for so long. And like I studied black and white art for so long, and grayscale and dot patterns and zip tone and all this stuff, because like all I ever wanted to do growing up was work in indie comics. Like especially after Ninja Turtles hit, and Judge Dredd and all these other things that were just so cool, and indie Grendel and Cerebus and all this stuff. I had no interest in going to work for Marvel. Like Marvel does cool stuff, but their stories, they've already got all their characters and they're telling all their stories. They've only added like maybe 5 good characters since then. Like I wanted to tell my own stories like all these other cool dudes were doing. And that was all black and white. So I studied black and white comics because that's what I was going to do when I grew up. And then the whole freaking world changed. And now comics are in color. And I had to teach myself to color from scratch as a freaking adult because I never bothered to learn color theory. Because why am I going to need that? Because I'm going to do black and white comics for a living. Well, no, you're not, little fishy. Not until you hit 45 years old. So,
Not that he's bitter, Nick. Not that he's bitter.
no. I just,
no,
man, if I had paid
it's
attention and listened, I could have gotten so much further, so much faster. But,
that's what
I
I
didn't
thought. I
listen.
studied color theory as going through design school, and it I don't use it. I don't like coloring. I was that kid who hated coloring books. Oh, it's time to color in the book. I'm like, no, I just rather draw the book.
Yeah, I'd rather draw the line art, but,
Yeah, I hire people to color it. People that are more interested in it.
I literally, like, to this day, every time I kind of laugh every time somebody pays me to illustrate and color a book, because I'm like, they don't know I'm not really a colorist. And I'm just waiting for somebody to like, wait a minute, you're faking it. You're not really a colorist, and take the money back. But like the last 3 jobs I got paid for were just strictly as a colorist. I wasn't even doing the line art. And that's nuts to me because like in my head, I'm still not a colorist. I'm still trying to figure it out. But, when I actually look at the timeline, I've got like, 15 years of figuring it out now, which, makes me
Yeah,
better than
you've
I
got the
was
time.
15 years ago.
Okay. So now that we've talked about you and gotten nerdy about the universes that are in there, let's get to the Kickstarter, which is the reason you brought us here. So
Indeed.
what can they get with the Kickstarter? What are the packages? What are the options? Because we're recording this and it's going to go out today. The Kickstarter doesn't actually go live to what, tomorrow morning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Tomorrow
maybe
morning.
what time tomorrow will they be able to get it?
Most likely 10 Central time, because that's usually when I do my art stream. And so I'm going to go live then and launch it live
Okay.
on Facebook and YouTube and all of the social medias and stuff. I will be on there
Okay.
going live. But yeah, it's got, trying to see if I can pull it up so I don't miss something stupid. I tend to keep them relatively simple these days because I've done bigger Kickstarters with all kinds of extra swag and then seen them get hung up and tangled up and tied down with, well, the bookmarks didn't get in time or this didn't get done on time. So I've really kind of honed it down to pretty much just the digital books, the physical books, like a layer that has like t-shirt and all that cool stuff on it, and maybe a poster that I can do myself here on my big printer, and keep it pretty simple. And then I've got all the add-ons where you can get all of the back issues of all my other books if you hadn't got them. Alice Lost in Wonderland, which just finished on backer kit a month or two ago, the books are almost in, and you can get a copy of that if you didn't go on the backer kit campaign to get that, because some of my regular Kickstarter backers didn't want to go over there, which is fine. They knew it would be available as a back issue down the road. Now it is. But yeah, everything's there. The prices are all pretty reasonable, and go check it out.
All right. So what are they getting if they buy it on the Kickstarter? What kind of packages are offered? What are the what do you call it? Stretch goals?
Oh, well, I've been running the same stretch goals for a while. We've got cool add-ons and stuff that you can get. Like there are acrylic figures of Alice and Big Ten from the Alice in Wonderland story that I ordered.
Can you show us that again?
Yeah. Yeah, this is the cover from the first issue of Fishtails, and
Nice.
I made acrylic standee figures. They're roughly 6 inches. Like Big Ten was supposed to be 6 inches tall, so she's a little shorter than him. And with the little stands and stuff, they're being shipped right now. And I've got extras of those that I ordered to cover this Kickstarter and stuff. So those are available as an add-on. And then, like I said, it's pretty much the physical books and stuff. Kept it pretty tight. There's also catch-up tiers that you can get. So, like, if you, because issue 2 has a story from Green Zone in it and has a story from Caw in it, if you want to get, like, the issue 2 and catch up with all the issues of the Mighty Caw, that's a tier that you can get. If you haven't read the Mighty Caw, the Cro-Magnon, you can get all 4 issues of that and issue 2 of this. Or if you haven't read Green Zone, you can get all the issues of Green Zone and catch up with that and sort of know what's going on. Though the Green Zone story is an original news story, just taking place in the same world. And the story from the world of the Mighty Caw is a new story too. You don't really need to know what happened in those books, but if you want to catch up and know what's going on, know who the characters are and who we're talking about, then that's a cool way to do that. And like I said, you can pick up all the extra stuff too. I'm trying to see if I have missed anything. Let me pull it up real quick. Let's see. Don't want to miss anything cool.
Okay.
Man, what is it with Kickstarter lately anyway? Every time I go in there, it's got my password saved and no issue. And then every once in a while, it's like, oh no, that saved password that you've been using for a year, that's not right. That can't be right.
Yeah.
It drives me up the wall. Yeah, we got the digital issues. We've got like you can get the physical issue of issue 2 for just $15. Comes with the digital copy too. You can get both the first and the second issue, physical and digital copies for $25. You can get the digital catch-up tiers on Green Zone and the Mighty Caw, $25 each, or you can get the physical tiers. Or there's even Mr. Fish Comics 13 comic library for $100 if you want to get that. There's
Nice.
also there are add-ons. You can get commissions from me. There's a handful of commission slots on there for like a single character commission, and then like up to a 5-character pinup or variant cover. You can get that, and there is original art on there too, because the story that I did for the Mighty Kess, this one right here, I hand inked all these pages on my live stream. So I have 7 of these pages that are available. The first backers get first pick of their choice of the pages. And then I have some original artwork that I inked for earlier variant covers and stuff that I did for Green Zone that are up there and available. I've got a oh, wait a minute, it's right here. I can actually reach it from here. Like I did a Miami Vice variant cover for issue 3 of Green Zone. I did a play off of Police Academy 2 for the
Oh.
second issue, where they're all posed like the guys from that. And for the Mighty Caw, I did this on my live stream as well. I had people shouting out their favorite barbarians on my live stream. So we got like Conan and Gru and He-Man and Thundar and Mytor and Skeletor and Red Sonja and Cerebus and Black Star and everybody in there with the Mighty Caw. So like the original art for that is all there. And then I have the original art from the pages of guests. It was so much fun to get to do that by hand. I kind of really want to start doing a little bit more like that. I like doing it in Fishtails because I can do shorter stories that way and not have to do like whole 24 pages that way. But it didn't slow me down as much as I thought it would. But I got to admit, the resolution is crap on real paper. Like, I don't know if it's my eyes or the paper, but the zoom's not nearly as good as it is on digital. I can zoom way in and, get those eyelashes just right. I had to go back to well, that's as good as you're doing on paper with a brush. So,
I have that problem when I write by hand too. My pen spell check just isn't up to par.
It's crap. It needs an update. Like,
right?
Oh man, don't even get me started. I don't know if mine's writing in Dutch or what, but the spelling is horrible.
It's bad when even the spell check's like, what the F, bro? Like, I don't even know what you're trying to say.
Dude, I don't even know how to get where you're going from here, man.
I've messed up spelling so bad that I literally broke spell check on Word and I had to uninstall the program and reinstall it.
Oh God. Yeah.
All right. So obviously that's the Kickstarter. It's going live on September 23rd. It'll be live till October 4th. So it'll be that 2-week window. So this isn't one, dear listener, that if you want to back it, you got to wait on, because you get the first of the month paycheck. So there's no excuses. And there's, that impetus to just do it right away, because it's not going to have that long shelf life, which, is one way to do it. And you had mentioned in the pre-show that, that middle ground was just dead anyway.
Yeah.
So just cut it out, which works, cuts all the stress from everybody. It's going to go live tomorrow or this afternoon as you're listening to it, because we're recording it on Sunday. It'll be airing Sunday night, and you'll be listening to it potentially Monday morning. It'll be going live Monday morning as well. This is going to be a bonus episode for you, because we still got the one I promised to go out on Monday that will go out as well. So this will be a twofer for you. But with that being said, how can listeners and viewers at home find you on the wild interwebs? And obviously, everything will be linked in the show notes.
Yeah. Right now, gomrfish.com is the best place to go, because that's my short link that takes you to whatever I'm working on now, which right now takes you directly to the Kickstarter. So go Mr. Fish, because Go Fish is taken and they want way too much money for a domain they're not using. So Go Mr. Fish will take you right there. And everything else is Mr. Fish Comics. I'm on everything. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. All of the places. I'm Mr. Fish Comics, and MrFishComics.com is the website and store. But I get more sales off my TikTok shop. But they are available at MrFishComics.com as well.
Okay. Where all do you sell your comics for anybody that's, wants to get some of the other stuff that you've produced? Because this isn't the only set of comics you've made, obviously. If they want to support you with your back catalog, are you on like Drive Through Comics? Are you on Comixology or any of those other platforms? I'm naming the only two I know, Nick. So if there are others, you've got to help me out.
Now I'm on my spots. I'm on MrFishComics.com. There's a store there where you can pick up back issues and stuff. And the TikTok shop is actually a really good place to get comics there, because it's got all of my stuff that's available right now. And half the time you can get free shipping or get coupons for discounts if you order over so much. But the cool thing is you don't have to just order from me to get those discounts. Like, you could order from any of my friends' shops or anybody on TikTok and combine it all into one order and then get free shipping because you went over, $30 or whatever it was.
Excellent.
Like I did that, and I got to back like 3 different comic creators and got like first issues from a whole bunch of people and got free shipping. So it's a real cool little extra thing about the TikTok shop that works well.
That's the dangerous part. It's the reason I could never work in a bookstore. I would owe them money at the end of every month.
Oh man.
So
man.
And we do these episodes, and Nick always backs them. And I'm just, I mean, I get that it's tax deductible, and that's the lie we tell ourselves, or that it's market research. But at a certain point in time, the wallet's just like, no more, JR. No.
Yeah, the amount I end up spending during every Kickstarter, because I go on so many shows and podcasts, and usually there's a whole lot of other cool creators on there too, and they're all talking about how awesome their books are. And after I'm listening to it for a few minutes and I've backed it, like, it's kind of a balancing act between like trying to make any money at all to be able to get the books made and shipped out and stuff, and not just spend all my money because, everybody's making cool books and I want to check them out.
Yep.
But then I also work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, most of the time making comics, which doesn't leave a whole lot of time to read comics. So I just had to buy like my third short box that I'm starting to fill up now, full of need to read books that I've gotten from people. And I don't know when I'm going to find time to get through all those boxes, but there's a handful of stuff that I absolutely read every time I get it, like Charlie McKelvey's Spider Squirrel, or Kenny Aiken's Apex Cybernetic Samurai Owl. I will stop what I'm doing. I will stop in the middle of a page for a paid client and read that book when it gets here, because I love it. And it's like total, like, old school Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle vibes before the cartoon. Like, I just love it. And, there's a handful of them that I will stop and read right at the spot. But a lot of other ones end up going from stack to stack to stack to box. And,
Yeah, I have that problem too in the reading world, whether it's books or comics or graphic novels or mangas. The amount of books we buy versus the amount of books we read, there's an imbalance there, because I see, oh, that looks good, and then you put it away because you meant to get to it, and life happens, kids happen, they want to be fed, and they want things like walks, and they're more needy than dogs, I tell you.
Oh yeah, by far. Like, if I go to a con, most of the cons I go to might only have a handful of other indie creators out there. And if so, I'm buying your book, period. And, if you make a handmade ash can or something, I'm absolutely buying it, because I want to check that, because I love mini comics and I love seeing what weird stuff people are doing. And so I end up with this stack of books at the end of each day at a con. And I'm so exhausted after working the con that I go home and crash at the hotel, and then I get up and do it again the next day, come home with another stack of books, and maybe I get to read a couple of them before I fall asleep at night. But yeah, more than I'd like to admit ends up in a box.
So do you have any closing thoughts? Not clothing thoughts. We don't care what you wear. As long as you're wearing pants.
Well, I was going to say, I got some clothing thoughts. The fat man don't have clothing thoughts. I got clothing. Closing. Now, see, you got me doing it. Closing thoughts. Check out the books. If you like multiversal adventures and stuff, there's some really cool stuff in here. The Alice story is amazing. It is my pride and joy. It is the story that I've been working my whole life towards telling. The whole reason that I've done 98 books in the last 5 years was to clear the forest and lay the groundwork to start telling this story. And so I'm super excited. The story in Green Zone is one of my favorites that I've gotten to work on from Green Zone so far. It's just, there's so much cool stuff. The story from the world of the Mighty Caw gives so much cool info about the world of the Mighty Caw, and has some little tidbits, if you're really paying attention, that tell you more about this world and where it might tie into other stuff that I've worked on. So, there's little mysteries to solve in there as well. So I hope you enjoy it. Go check it out. Back to books. That's all I got.
And this is the point of the interview at the end, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part. I know that's a little bit harder with indie comics to review. It's not like you can just hop over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and leave a review. I don't know if comics get to Goodreads where people leave reviews there for books. I don't know if that's a thing. But what you could do is start a YouTube channel like we did and just share your thoughts, bloviate to the universe. And I almost guarantee if you tag the author who you're doing it, they will pop in and say, thanks for talking about me. Because, all publicity is good publicity, unless you put pineapple on pizza, and then you're dead to me. All right. With that, you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters, the Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Send all the shenanigans to Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email. We have our website. It's Spotify, bunch of gobbledygook. Don't blame me, blame them. Check the link tree out, click the link, and when you go to our website on Spotify, you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. These episodes aren't free to produce, and we appreciate your patronage. And if you want to support the show more directly, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment sections for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that sweet tea, otherwise known as diabetes, in a cup until their head explodes. And then we will film it, and we'll do it all over again the next day. You can support us also by going to the link in the show notes for Coffee Brand Coffee. Use the code podcast grunts, get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's an American company hiring American employees, shipping in the continental United States. And I do believe they'll hit Alaska and Hawaii now. It is not a drop shipping operation. They actually roast the plants on site. They have employees that do that. And I like supporting shopping local. I think that's important. That's why indie creators is good, because you're always shopping local you can always shop local if you go for indie creators, because you can find out where they're from, and that's always cool to know people in your neighborhood, and you're supporting them by keeping the money in your community. That's always a good thing. And with that, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right, Fish, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely, man. This was a blast. I really enjoyed it.
Blasters and Blades, you had a blast. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's almost like we intended it that way.
I'm saying.
Kid, that's right. I mean, or we just got lucky. Sometimes both happens. But with that, I'm going to hit the end button so we can upload this, and people can go back. Your Kickstarter links are in the show notes, people. And with that, boom.